Hello, Starry Travelers, and welcome to this sidereal look at the month ahead. Michael and I make videos for people who use astrology in their lives. I will endeavor to keep things accessible without oversimplifying, and I'm going to detail the new moon on March 29th, the full moon on April 12th, and I'll outline the planetary transits. I'm going to do my best to condense about a month into about an hour. So, let's dive. This month begins with a very Piscean solar eclipse, March 29th, and we're looking at those heavens. So you'll see Sun and Moon together in Pisces, joined by Neptune, Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Eris, and the Centaur Chiron. We're adding Chiron back in this month because he plays a little bit more of a major role. Uranus and Jupiter occupy the stars of constellation Taurus, while Mars is going to finish up Gemini this month. The South Node is finishing up Virgo slowly. Pluto is entering Capricorn slowly, having been on this cusp for a while between Sag and Cap. And dwarf planet Ceres sits in Aquarius. She'll make her way into Pisces this month. Let's look at this in two dimensions. The chart we're looking at is the exact same date, March 29th, and it's the chart of a new moon. So it contains all the blueprint, all the data of the cycle, the entirety of it. And for that reason, we'll spend some extra time on it. But I want to break this new moon into three simple parts. It's a solar eclipse. Oh gosh, yeah. It's a solar eclipse. Sun and moon are together near a node, the north node, and that means we're going to have to look at that, the energies of that. It's a Pisces party, total big Pisces party, Pisces Palooza. And we'll look at Pisces. We'll take a deep dive into Pisces. We'll cover Mars because Mars is activated and remains activated throughout the cycle. But those are the three components that I'm going to take a look at. I'm going to focus on primarily. We'll talk about some of the distinct planetary relationships and the effects they might have throughout the course of the video rather than trying to break this down looking at this alchemy. It's going to be very complicated. So the first thing we have is an eclipse, and eclipses happen in series called Saros series. I'll leave a link to my video on Saros series in the description below, what they are, how they work. It's pretty neat. It's good to understand. This eclipse is part of a Saros series called 9 New North in Astrology. And Bernadette Brady depicts it as a very physically expressive Saros series. The series itself highlights Mars, and she says accidents, great physical effort, violence, or any sudden physical events mark this eclipse series. Now, these can be experienced positively, she notes, as, for example, the first time snow skiing, or it can be felt negatively in terms of accidents and so on. The approach to take when this series is affecting a chart, Brady advises, is not to hide away, but to undertake some physical activity with an ever watchful eye to safety. When we're dealing with the Saros series and its energies, we can always look and see what is the origin chart of that Saros series. I want to bring this up on the screen for a moment. This is the natal chart of the Saros series in question. And here we have the very first eclipse in a series of eclipses that'll last thousands of years. We see Pluto on Betelgeuse. That's something Brady. Brady focuses incredibly intently on midpoints, so I'm going to bring in some of the other data that's in the chart. We see Uranus and Chiron together with South Node, very tightly formed. And with the North Node, we see Mercury, Venus, and Venus is on the fixed star Regulus. We see Eris, and we see the Sun and Moon, all in North Node. And Mars is on a fixed star too, Spica, while Saturn approaches the galactic center. So I would say this echoes exactly what Brady's saying. I'd say that Mars trines to Uranus and Pluto, where Mars sits on their midpoint. They make for explosive and dynamic situations. And Pluto on Betelgeuse is a victory star. It's a success star. It's a very powerful influence, and it empowers Pluto in his opposition to Saturn on the GC. So what I see there symbolizes the death of the old, especially relative to social orders, political systems, or institutions. And as noted, I noted this last month, at the time of this eclipse, on the date, August 21st, 1964, New Amsterdam was under siege and becoming New York via English conquest. So we see these themes of, old social orders or institutions changing, transforming via Pluto. We see that strongly in this chart. So it's a very, very volatile eclipse. It favors radical change via martial or Martian means. It occludes insight via Uranus and Mercury being with the nodes. They're both eclipsed. And it favors the breakdown of systems, habits, patterns, and structures via Saturn's approach to the galactic center. Yeah, here's the new moon chart. With Saturn's approach to Neptune, you also see Neptune dissolve those boundaries and begin to exert its vast and nebulous influence where onto Saturn, where Saturn prefers the discrete. Saturn prefers the limited, and Neptune is totally unlimited and hard to quantify. And that brings me to the second point of this examination, which is Pisces. With Eris, Chiron, Neptune, Mercury, Saturn, Venus, the North Node, and soon to be Ceres in Pisces, this party really reflects the artfulness and beauty that Pisces can convey, it can contain. With Venus and Neptune here, the uplifted, the beautiful, the enlightened side of Pisces is going to be highlighted. In regards to artfulness and beauty, this could be applied to making our dreams real. That's a Saturn function, bringing the transcendental, that's a Pisces function, down to earth, grounding it. So dreams, beauty, inspiration, all of these things. It all comes together on a star called Shiat, which makes things difficult. It brings sadness, and it gives access to absolutely next level insights. It does this all at the same time. It's kind of a complex. It's often that the insight that Shiat engenders is the source of the sorrow. It's like a painful truth. Painful truths is what this is. And Venus and Mercury are both here this month too. So they're quick. They move fast. They're kind of fleeting influences. Soon, Ceres, the North Node, will move through here too. This summer, everyone's going to focus a lot more on Saturn and Neptune as they meet on Shiat, and they'll build very slowly to a February 20th, 2026 conjunction. Today, I want to focus on Pisces and how that stellar radiation affects things. Pisces seem to be very watery stars. They're kind, they're spiritual, they're emotional, they're generous. It's symbolized by two fish, and it's modernly considered to be ruled by planetary Neptune, anciently by planetary Jupiter. But one of the reasons the Piscean influence is so strong is because Neptune is at home, empowering this stellium, this conjunction, and everything it touches, which is a considerable number of relationships, important relationships this month. I said last month that I thought that Neptune had a mythology based on Poseidon that was a misfit. I questioned that association. Like I questioned Uranus, planetary Uranus, last month. And I observed Prometheus to better express the mysteries of planetary Uranus than Caelus, or, Uranus is his Greek name, so a little different from the other planets in that regard. But the Roman Uranus was Caelus, the sky god, who we know little about. And this month I'll look at planetary Neptune and Pisces via the myths of Poseidon and beyond, because we know a lot about Poseidon, actually. Unlike Uranus, Caelus, there's a large body of mythological content. So I want to summarize that here. All right, so we have a little bit of graphic help for this summary. Poseidon, Neptune, is one of the Olympian gods. He's the son of Kronos and Rhea, brother of Zeus and Hera, and Hades, as well as Hestia and Demeter. And astrologically, we know these as Saturn, Jupiter, Juno, Vesta, Ceres, Pluto, and Neptune. Neptune is a god of the seas. He's the god of earthquakes and horses. And those were his superpowers: seas, earthquakes, and horses. This is Poseidon. He's an active and really involved player in mythology. And he's most famous for his very emotional nature and powerfully volatile temper. Poseidon frequently flexed power and influence. He is known for his involvement in conflicts and his interactions with mortals and less powerful beings. His epithet, the Earthshaker, was given because he is a god of earthquakes. He's often called Earthshaker in the mythologies. He's symbolized by the presence of his weapon, the trident, not a secret weapon. He carried it everywhere he's represented. So let's compare that symbolism to what we know about planetary Neptune in astrology. It's watery, yes. Even in that representative symbolism of the emotions, however, planetary Neptune is almost never volatile. It's one of the more pacific influences in the heavens. And in astrology, planetary Neptune is almost universally accepted as the planet of dreams, inspiration, intuition, spirituality, and illusions and disillusionment. It's associated with the subconscious, the mystical, and the intangible aspects of life. Its influence is notably peaceful, forgiving, deep, and accepting. Its shadow expression simply isn't a shadow of explosive temper, but rather of illusions, delusions, and addictions of all kinds. Very nonviolent. So, of course, I question this mythological association, you know, and I had the thought one day to learn about the personalities of the Titans to see if any of them correlated shockingly well to Neptune Pisces. And I'm going to take a tangent here. We're going to shift lanes briefly before coming back to the idea of the Titans and correlations with Neptune and Pisces. The younger gods, and this is the tangent, we're starting a tangent. Changing lanes here. Younger gods in our modern understanding are like the inner planetary forces. So we have the conscious mind, like Sun and Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. They're conscious forces. They're faster forces. And in this genealogy, and there's so much here, I'm not going to unpack it, but we see let's see, Aphrodite, Venus, Apollo, who we're commonly taught is the sun god, and Artemis, who we're commonly taught is the moon, Hermes, Mercury, and Mars was the son of Zeus. In ancient Greek mythology, Apollo was not the sun god. That was Hyperion's and Thea's child, Helios. And Apollo was originally the god of music, poetry, light, prophecy, and healing. Likewise, Artemis, not the moon goddess, as we were told in schools, but goddess of wild animals, wilderness, and hunting. The moon herself was also Hyperion and Thea's daughter, Selene. So, moving outward through these planetary correlations, we find Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and we find older gods, subconscious and unconscious forces, like slower and deeper, older. And there's a lot here that goes to symbolic interpretation. Like, how do we pull out the secrets and mysteries within the myths? All right, how do we discover what they're trying to tell us here? This is encoded information. All deep information is encoded information. And I just want to make a note here of the Little Book of Hercules by William Beaudry, which details the labors, the myth of Hercules as a method of conveying secret, almost like untellable, unteachable information that can almost only be conveyed by metaphor. William Beaudry is a master in the Taoist, Buddhist, and Confucian traditions. So he writes about Greek mythology from this totally different perspective. Now, you might not be a dedicated spiritual adept making progress along the inner path, or you might be, but this book is a masterclass in learning how to interpret symbolism in myth. Okay, so back to this graphic. This graphic is from Plato's Timaeus. That's where we get this genealogy. Hesiod's Theogony also describes the lineage and heritage of the children of primordial chaos, children of primordial chaos down to Zeus, the king of the gods. So we have these descriptions in a couple places. I want to make a note. Homer, Hesiod, Plato, and others all give different family trees, and it indicated a lack of a universal model. So I like Plato's model because he was into the Egyptian mysteries, and It is worth noting relative to Homer that numerous passages in his Iliad, Homer's Iliad, suggest that he knew of a mystery tradition that had a totally different order. It didn't originate with Uranus and Gaia, but it originated with Oceanus and his wife Tethys. More on that on Oceanus Wikipedia page, which is actually a great page. So, all right, that's a good place to stop the tangent. I had said I wanted to research the Titans, and to do that, I got out my internet and I went to TOI.com, which I would like to just say is a great place to learn about Greek mythology. I went here and I went to the section on Titans, and I didn't really have to look that far before I learned that the oldest Titan, Oceanus, was the primordial Titan of the great waters of the earth. We can see him here in his like half serpent, half god, half human, whatever you want to call it, form, holding a serpent and a fish, symbols of the waters. This is a lot, and I can summarize it. I'll summarize it for you. In the earliest Greek mythology, Oceanus was a force of nature, a great world-encircling river. He was perfect and endlessly flowed back into himself. He was considered the source of seas, waters, springs, and wells, like an Ouroboros that encircled the early world, nourishing everything. As the original world river, he embodies oceanic flow and tidal rhythms. The vastness of his domain and the mysterious realms that might lie beyond it resonate with the deep, the infinite, and the intangible, as well as being a source of mystical or transcendental inspiration and an outer boundary. Now, all of that you can read into the idea that he is a river that encircles the known world. And of all the workable parallels, I find that one to be the most important, the idea that he's an outer boundary. And it's mirrored too in the idea that he's the oldest Titan. So we can continue with the summary. In later Greco-Roman mythology, now that idea that he was a world-encircling river goes to much earlier. I would even go so far as to suggest a little bit primitive mythology, almost like that correlates with like a flat Earth at the middle of the cosmos. Those old ideas. So in later Greco-Roman mythology, the Titan Oceanus is generally depicted as a calm, level-headed, neutral figure, often depicted with flowing robes and long beard, symbolic of wisdom. Sometimes he's a watery place, and sometimes he's a person. And most notably, he did not participate in the Titanomachy. That's the war between the old and the new gods in mythology. Unlike most of the Titans, he was neutral in that conflict. And even though he was one of the most important and eldest Titans, he stayed out of it. Oceanus is never really violent or mighty or manipulative in contrast to Poseidon, but rather known for neutrality, benevolence, and peace, and respected for his great wisdom. He's often depicted reclining and seen as a figure of counsel, even close to Prometheus, visiting him during his punishment to offer advice. although Prometheus offered some advice back, as one might when their liver is being eaten by an eagle. Oceanus' neutrality even led to him being considered by some as the noblest of all the Titans, suggesting a wisdom that transcended the need for power and conflict. There are really powerful parallels here between Oceanus and Pisces Neptune. So there you have it. I'm definitely not trying to reinvent the wheel here, not trying to declare a new truth. This is not a proclamation. It's an invitation to think differently, to not blindly accept the conventional understandings, to ask questions, to dig deeper. I'll still call them Uranus and Neptune, right, as we do, but the strong relationships between astrological Uranus, Neptune, and mythological Prometheus and Oceanus give me much more helpful and workable information about those planets and their stars, how they act, what they do, their evolutionary prerogatives, and so on. So let's take it back to the natal chart. Those are my thoughts on Pisces and the eclipse here this month. And in contrast to all that peaceful acceptance, we find Mars on fixed star Pollux. Pollux represents the twin of Gemini, who was commonly he was the bad twin. He was the evil twin, if you want to get moralistic about it. And in contrast to Pisces neutrality, Mars on this star is notoriously brutal, tyrannical, violent, and cruel. This star has a very Martian nature, and Mars isn't really. He looks pretty happy now with these trines. He's supported by Venus, by Neptune, by Saturn, but he'll play a bigger role in this cycle. So I just want to say, keep your eye on him. And actually, for now, we can move on. The main idea is that he's activated and on a volatile star. So these are very divided influences. Taken as a whole, everything in Pisces wants peace, but it's eclipsed. And Mars is on a big war star. I would say that with the exception of Eris, this stellium is mostly peaceful, peaceable planets. So that's the new moon. Pisces eclipse with Mars on this big war star. It's very divided influence because Neptune and the North Node with this stellium here in Pisces will create confusion. And if there's violence, it wants nothing to do with it. Nothing. But with the exception of Eris, this stellium is a very peaceful, peaceable planet. Then with Mars here, you have decidedly volatile, decidedly dynamic influence. So from a mundane point of view, from a world events point of view, I think that we have exclusively pacific and violent influences overwhelming the chart. And they're exclusive to each other in a way. How can you be violent if you're peaceful? How can you be peaceful if you're violent? These are exclusive. These are mutually exclusive, but they're related in the same configuration. I think the Mars people in the world will be under a powerfully assertive influence, good, bad, and otherwise. And all of the Venus people, Mercury, Neptune, Saturn people, Eris people, Chiron people, healers, as well as just Sun and Moon people, that lends itself to a much more passive, much less reactive position this month. And on a personal level, just on an individual level, a lot of what I'm about to say is going to depend on where Pisces is in your chart and, what kind of person you are. But on a personal level, I think generally speaking, this stellium with Saturn, it connects us to our, like I was saying before, our most beautiful dreams and our highest aspirations. That's a Venus, Neptune, Mercury function. And it can allow us an opportunity to bring them down, ground them in our real life, in our everyday life, in the real world, the so-called real world. Eris Chiron is an awesome combination. It invites a lot of shadow work, though, invites a lot of deep spiritual work, confronting our personal blind spots. That's the medicine here. And all of this, the Pisces Chiron, the stellium here, trines Mars, Uranus sextiles Mars and makes contact with the rest of it. So it brings in a lot of connectivity here. And that does connect to moving things forward, to taking brave steps. Don't be defined or limited by the idea that Mars is on the evil twin stars. It doesn't mean you have to go and, take harmful steps. I would say be careful not to be too forceful in your moving forward. Like Mars on Pollux is empowered to take steps forward, to make new overtures in directions around this shadow work or our dreams and aspirations. So just be careful not to get in anyone else's elbow room or step on anyone's toes if that's not your intention, because Mars on Pollux can be a little less considerate. All right, I think that's the gist. I think we're going to leave it there. Move on to the waxing transits. And here we are, folks, at the transits between the new moon, March 29th, and the full moon, April 12th. And the first thing we see is a Mercury-Neptune conjunction. It's very close for the new moon and symbolizes a lot of sensitivity, inspiration, and compassion. It makes things a little weird and sensitive, but it allows us sympathy where often we could be calloused against certain situations. So be open to that. Be open to sympathy and even and always a little bit of a double-edged sword on this one, empathy. Empathy is a Neptune-Mercury function. And with empathy, you have to be a little careful. Empathy is literally the feeling what the people around you are feeling or relating to other people's feelings. So that comes with a light side and a shadow side. It can engender compassion, or we can get carried away feeling things that aren't even ours, don't even originate with us. Then we get a break, a sweet break through the 30th, 31st, 1st, and all of this happens under the influence of Saturn in orb of Uranus. But that doesn't perfect until March 4th. March 4th, the day of the waxing quarter moon. So between the new moon and the waxing quarter, we don't have many transits, but we do get hit with a powerful burst that looks like Saturn and Mars trining, and they're sextiling Uranus, who sits on their midpoint. So very close burst here on the 4th. We have all of that perfecting, as well as a Mars square to Eris. Eris and Uranus with Mars imply a very sudden and forceful nature. It implies the sudden and forceful events, and it, in a sense, Saturn trines bring in long-term plans. Saturn trine Mars activates things that have been underway for a while, the kind of endeavors that you make slow progress every day, footstep at a time. From a mundane point of view, we can expect a lot of action around the time of the waxing quarter. It's going to be Mars action, and it's going to be in connection with Uranus and Eris, as well as supported by Saturn. We can expect action. We can expect dynamic action, things to happen. But from a personal point of view, this can be a time to move our ongoing projects of all kinds forward. Mars-Saturn in trine symbolizes the endeavors that we move forward just slowly and steadily. Uranus on their midpoint offers a chance to explode forward, make burst, make a overture towards our goal. There's great energy to reevaluate and reform motivations and intentions at this time on a personal level. And here we have the first quarter moon on the 4th of April. Just going to take a look at this. I want to note the closeness of the aspects in the Uranus-Saturn-Mars relationship. Uranus and Saturn at the time of the moon are 0 degree 1, Uranus-Mars 0 degree 3, and Saturn-Mars 0 degree 1 arc minute. Incredibly close. It's going to be potent. And what emerges out of this lunar cycle is going to reflect this Martian muzzle velocity. Okay, so we're back here with the transits. And we just looked at the waxing quarter moon. We have a break on the 5th, and then on the 6th, we should have a little bit of calm as Venus trines Mars and Sun sextiles Jupiter. That can bring softness and ease. And the moon is with Mars, so Venus trine moon affects Mars, and that should be sweeter and softer than some of this muzzle velocity Mars action. That looks like the product of Uranus and Eris contact. So we may get a chance to relax with this. Who can say? But the 6th looks like a little better day. And then on the 7th, another busy day astrologically, as we have Venus conjunct Saturn, Venus sextile Uranus, and Mercury stationing direct. Venus conjunct Saturn could be a relationship review, but Mercury stationed direct, so it's not a great time for any relationship review. It's not great for most people. Pisces can protect this. But be on guard. Be on guard for unusual relationship scenarios on the 7th. Or anything that comes up, and just be aware that Mercury is stationed direct and will start moving again on the 8th or 9th. So you might want to put conversations on hold for a couple of days if they arise. And then on the 10th, we wrap up these sets of transits with Ceres square Jupiter. Ceres square Jupiter. Ceres is on fixed star Anka, Alpha Phoenix, and Jupiter is on fixed star Rigel, Beta Orion. So they're both powerfully activated, and this should boost compassion and humanity within situations. It should broaden and embolden people's sympathies and their compassion. And again, a Jupiter square Ceres function can be sort of overabundance of empathy. So I want to caution people to really, just, it's not that there's anything wrong with empathy per se. It's just that it's rarely recognized when it's happening, when we're caught up in an emotional swell and we're sort of thinking with our hearts. It's very rare that we have the self-awareness to see like, oh, these are the feelings of the people all around me, and I'm just caught up in it. It often feels, and Jupiter square Ceres can accentuate this, like we're just all in the same wave. And sometimes we forfeit our choice or freedom in that regard and get into like those groupthink or herd type behaviors. So I want to caution against that sort of shadow of Jupiter square series. It could be nice, this Jupiter series, which perfects on the 10th, because if Mars on fixed star Pollux correlates with the bad things or the violent things happening at larger scale, this should galvanize a humanitarian response. All right, and with that, let's take a look at the full moon. That's happening on the 12th. And here we are. It's full moon time on April 12th. We will experience the fullness, which is the opposition between the sun and moon, a time of high energy, peak dynamic activity, and usually very stimulated. It stands in contrast to the new moon, which is generally a pretty chill time. So we have a couple things going on here. We have a Pisces Virgo axis with the sun and moon. And that Pisces Virgo axis symbolizes a lot in and of itself. We have the sun with Eris and Chiron. We have the moon on fixed star Spica. We have Mars T-square sun-moon opposition. And we have the Pisces stellium on the Uranus-Pluto midpoint. Pisces stellium on the Pluto-Uranus midpoint. We also have Mars opposing Pluto. The moon is yod. So there's a lot going on with this full moon. The first thing we can say generally is it's bound to be very dynamic and active. Look at all of these interrelationships in the chart. That is going to catalyze a lot of activity. We don't have to drill down or get specific. We can just look at it and see that is a lot of important relationships, a lot of conjunctions, trines, squares, sextiles, oppositions. We can definitely say this is not likely to pass without event. But let's break it down a point at a time. Pisces, Virgo, symbolic of the right brain, that's Pisces, left brain split, that's Virgo. And a moon in Virgo symbolizes trying to make sense out of what's happening. Moon in Virgo wants to rationalize or find context for it, wants to find explanations, rational explanations. They need to make logical sense in Virgo. Now, sun in Pisces with Eris and Chiron is symbolizing something a little more difficult to understand. It symbolizes the chaotic, the disordered, the kind of radically unorganized and unexpected. It symbolizes the deep, the profound, the transcendental. Eris and Pisces are both transcendental influences, but Pisces all on its own is not a logical process. All of this is going to be resonating with our feelings, We're going to be processing these influences emotionally. We're going to be trying to make sense of them rationally. The sun and Eris and Chiron together, infused by late Pisces, can really affect the highest spiritual principles, Eris. And I would say that Eris is a transcendental figure, yes, who takes us past the known limits, yes, fearlessly. Fearless for her to do that, usually terrifying for us, especially where power is concerned. She takes us past the known limits of our power and powerlessness. Both. Eris symbolizes the inner journey towards wholeness. Full stop. She symbolizes the journey, the climb up the mountain. Specifically, it's the journey to integrate and incorporate that which we refuse to accept about ourselves, the shadow, that which we other, that which we project. It's a very difficult influence and implies shadow work. It implies looking at our own blind spots if we want to benefit. Fortunately, Eris imparts motivation and work ethic to make this journey. So we should, with Sun here, be feeling powerfully motivated to do this. Chiron's going to assist with any healing intentions and work, and he at the same time highlights our vulnerabilities and healing needs. So these could be sensitive processes. These could even be painful processes. It's possible. They are healing processes when Chiron is involved. And sometimes we have to dig for that. So the clues are there. The code is in the Eris Sun Chiron combination. How do we unlock the medicine? By means of Eris, doing inner shadow work around our blind spots, looking at what we're afraid to. Moon on Spica. Moon is also yod to Pisces Palooza and Uranus on Algol. And yeah, so she's trying to Jupiter on Rigel too. And this sets up a special alchemy for the moon, this full moon. She's blessed here to reason and to understand. And if we can't do that, if we can't understand what's happening, if we can't reason about it and rationalize it, she helps us, Spica helps us to accept life on its own terms. It's a reminder. It's a blessing, and it's a reminder that life won't meet us on our terms. But if we're willing to take steps towards it as it is, I've seen life take steps towards those people who do this. It's like the road rises up to meet their footsteps, as it were. It's that good luck, that good fortune. You see it often with Jupiter and Saturn, but you see it with life broadly. And that is a moon on Spica opposite Pisces thing. We're dealing with just reality broadly. This could be a clarion call. Moon here could really activate the discovery of our true dreams, and it could ground them. Could be very driven to ground dreams this month. Could be compelled to really make some sense of this and get it grounded in your real life. We can be removing inner obstacles to our own progress through spiritual work relative to our wounds. That is the Eris Chiron special, and Spica blesses this. Spica gives us insight and clarity, strength to proceed. All manner of blessing ensue from Spica. And the Sun Moon in opposition is T-squared by Mars, who's moved on to fixed star Procyon. Mars is also incredibly activated by aspects. Look at that. Only failing to make major aspect to Ceres and Jupiter. Everyone else making major aspect to. So, what does this symbolize? Aggression could be an issue this full moon. That's the short version. From the individual's point of view, not really relating to mundane astrology, but the individual, for each of us, the work to heed that clarion call from our dreams might be blocked. Right? It's going to be driven by the yod, but it could be blocked by Mars and Mars issues. And Mars is opposite Pluto, and they're T-squaring the full moon. This opposition, Pluto-Mars, is connected to physical force, coercion, manipulation. Mars also trines Mercury to His closest relationship, 0 degrees, 12 arc minutes. And that's symbolic of lightning quick wits and high tempers. Lightning quick wits and high tempers. Venus, on the other hand, stationed direct, is a calming influence. She'll bring calm from Pisces. It's going to take some of that aggressive Mars fire and cool it, although the Pluto influence is something that Venus is not always prepared on her own to just mitigate. All right, so what does that mean? We have on the level of the world, the level of the collective, the mundane mundo world, the level of the mundane, we can expect a lot of intensity, especially around Mars being so activated. We can expect systems and structures to destabilize. That is a Saturn-Neptune function. And we can expect general difficulty as a lot of volatile stars are activated. We can expect a lot of focus and attention, North Node, from the public on the destabilization of old systems. And at the level of the moon, we find great blessing, actually. So in that way, the moon on Spica makes this personal cycle more relevant here, as the moon, above and beyond all other heavenly bodies, is always indicating the interpersonal journey, the self or the individual. And on a personal level, we can say that moon on Spica is going to help us make sense of the world, make sense of the world. We can make spiritual progress upstream, against, even in spite of the world. I want to say, like the Stoics say, the obstacle is not on the path in front of you, obstructing you. Like, don't shake your fist at the obstacle on the path. The obstacle is the path. This is the way. And a drive to find meaning, purpose, and context, even amidst great difficulty. The drive towards recognizing meaning may be related to processes of restructuring or reshaping, reformation, updating, modernizing, that's specifically due to the yod between Saturn and Uranus and the moon, that the structures of Saturn be modernized and updated, that reformation affect our considerations and our journey this month, and that all of this reshaping and restructuring is, for better or worse, it's right on time. All right. So now we are observing the transits between the full moon and the next new moon. That would be April 27th. On the way, we'll look at the waning quarter moon on the 20th. I think that's all the intro this needs. We can jump right in. On the 12th, day of the full moon, Venus stations direct in Pisces, and this should be a mellow Pacific influence. Yeah, good for everything it touches. And then the next day, on April 14th, Sun conjoins Eris. Exact. And this could spell authority issues in the mundane sense or in the personal sense, in that the Sun is the most orderly heavenly body. It deviates the least from its perceived orbit. It's very orderly. Eris is the most chaotic, just hands down chaos. So Eris's brightest angle is always to empower us to see through our own bullshit and hypocrisy by polishing the inner mirror of our psyches. clarifying our blind spots, as it were. And then just past midnight on the 17th, right on the 16th, 17th. Again, these are for my time zone. It really doesn't matter. The difference that it makes is very minimal. But, this Neptune-Mercury conjunction is happening very, very roughly for the world early on the 17th. It happens closely trine to Mars. As you can see, Neptune and Mars perfect their trine on the 19th. And this conjunction on the 17th should soften Mars' opposition to Pluto and square to Eris. It should be pretty deep, pretty weird, pretty strange, dreamy, lurid, languid, and inspired. But it's very hard to separate from Mars. So, we have to be aware that at this time, Neptune and Mercury are with Mars, trined Mars. And Mars trine Neptune, as it perfects on the 19th, is going to give an energy that's pretty artistic. It's actually very creative. It's explorative. It acts outside of the box, thinks very differently, and it acts on those unusual flows. And in the same sort of period of time, 20th of April, we have 3 transits going exact. We have Venus sextile Uranus. We have Mercury sextile Pluto. And we have the Sun square to Mars. Venus sextile Uranus, kind of like Mars Neptune, really outside of the box, really, really nice. A little more insightful, a little more uplifted outside of the box. But Mercury sextile Pluto, April 20th, this date is going to have to do with channeling some of this stranger energy into action, into constructive action, channeling frustration into new steps, as the Sun here square Mars is entering Aries, and all that Piscean passivity is going to give way to Aries' more reactive approach right around the waning moon. And that's kind of all I want to say. We can use that as a segue to the waning moon. And this is the waning moon chart. I only want to note that Mars is making a zeroed, just exact, harsh angles to the luminaries. Mars, exact square Sun, exact opposition Moon, as Moon is with Pluto and Sun is with Eris. Now, the waning quarter is not often associated with the expression of dynamic activity, and this could be an exception. This could easily be an exception to that rule. We could see action and expression of a Martian nature, a Mars, Pluto, Eris nature. Very empowered, very volatile. We could see that around the last quarter moon, April 20th. Oh, wow. Yeah, back to waning transits, looking at the 21st and 22nd. We get a little break from any exact activity. We'll be under the spell of Venus as she conjoins to Saturn. That starts on the 20th. Doesn't go exact until the 24th. Before that, the Sun will square Pluto, kind of completing that Mars formation, Mars-Pluto opposition. And on the 24th, I think that we could see this support Saturn. It's usually really good for relationships, even though sometimes there's a process involved with that, and it's like good at the end, but not during. Kind of like I advised not to do the Venus-Saturn things while Mercury was retrograde, because Mercury is so key to the function of relationship. If this Venus-Saturn creates, as it so often does, a situation of kind of make or break or test the relationship. Just know that this has the potential to build relationships, and that relationships that survive difficulty and adapt to become more resilient are stronger than those relationships that are governed by more dynamic, where people are afraid to go into that heavy territory. Saturn Venus can take relationships into heavy territory, but for all the right reasons. And when we look at this Sun square Pluto and Mars opposite Pluto happening on the 23rd and 26th, on a personal level, this whole set of influences could easily connect people to violence via Pluto's ability to intensify Mars. Pluto intensifies Mars. Or it could connect people to creativity, constructive approaches, healthy masculinity via Pluto's ability to transform and temper Mars. Pluto has a higher octave of Mars, can lean to either extreme, either intensifying Mars's violent and selfish impulses, or intensifying the creative, constructive, healthy impulses. So we have a chance via the Sun's connection to this to work with it skillfully. The opposition between Pluto and Mars is not easy, but it can be profoundly beautiful and uplifting. Mahatma Gandhi had this opposition in their natal chart and was connected to force, but did the healthy things with their impulses and as a response to violence. When it comes to Mars opposite Pluto, this is their last contact for quite a while. They've been flirting for months. They've been in orb and sort of back and forth, been in opposition for a long time. And as it perfects right at this time, 2106 on the 26th, Saturn is exactly opposite the south node. Now, Moon is 0 degrees conjunct Eris. And at this time, on the 26th, expect karma. Expect that this will be a time when debts need to be paid, when the not like your credit card, but like long-standing karmic debts, social debts. Saturn is societal karma. This is looking like it has the potential to be quite a reckoning as we head towards the next new moon. And we'll take a look at that next new moon right now. We'll take a little sneak peek, as we always do, just so we know where this is headed. This next new moon on April 27th will be Aries season, right on fixed star Hamal. And like I said, all that Piscean passivity, oh, you're going to see it give way next month to something a lot more volatile. You're going to see it give way to something more active, dynamic. This will take a new turn, new steps, and largely in response to what happens this month, March 29th and onward. And with that, I just want to leave it there. We'll be back next month to take a look. I want to thank you. These are strange times, strange times. Community is always helpful. So I encourage everyone to build your connections to your communities and do that human thing, because we are a collective. We are a species. We are a kind. So build those networks with your kind, your kith and kin. To the end of engendering community, I happen to run 2 of them. They aren't really about me, but they're about astrology and constellational astrology especially. Radical Astrology has communities on Discord and Facebook, so you can look for invitation links in the description below. The Facebook especially is a place where people can connect with things like Rio's workshops, where people can build skills and community. Julie and Maria's constellational conversations, learning via dialogue, very personalized. And Dr. Danny is running an academy of astrology for people who want to take their studies much deeper to the next level. All of those things are just examples of projects you can kind of connect with on the Radical Astrology Facebook group. So do join us if you use that platform. If you don't, there's Discord. If not, get a telescope. And Stellarium, that's all you need. An update on Serena. She is going to have her hearing, and I would just ask that on or around April 4th that you keep her in your light and prayers and highest thoughts and intentions. All of you workers of goodness out there. We've made it this far. It's been a 2-year journey, and now she gets to discuss her case with a judge, having been denied twice. Yeah, fingers crossed, or thumbs, or whatever you do in your culture. Yeah, I don't think I have a lot of other stuff to report on this month, so please be safe, be well, and thank you for being informed. The patterns in the world we live in. Please feel invited to like and subscribe. Leave a quick thumb. The psh, old Roman yay he lives. And do the subscribing and get updates to stay informed of all these materials. Yeah, comment, say hi. Let me know how these months are treating you, because it's been a doozy. It's been a real wild ride, and I hope you've all been able to keep your hands and head inside the card at all times, and all the appropriate no smoking and other signs. I wish you all well through these turbulent times, and I'll see you next month.